Once upon a time, a distant memory. It's like synergy. Life the hardest teacher y'all could ever get the master. Get a test first, then y'all get that lesson after. Steve's never stressing them G's to freeze egos. Please, I just get them in threes, like the Migos.
What's going on, everybody? I'd like to welcome y'all back to the Diagnosed Success Podcast. I am your host, K Sparks. We are blessed and highly favored. It's a blessing to be a blessing, man. I love this podcast. I love y'all. I love just chopping it up, engaging y'all in this way, man. So it's nothing but love, man. And as always, before we get started with today's episode, I'm going to start it off with that word of the day. Something motivational, inspirational, get you through your day, your week, your life. All right? I live it, I preach it, I teach it. This word of the day says, what you lose in family, you gain in friends. I like that. What you lose in family, you gain in friends. You know, all of these word of the days, even though I say them, you know, and I'm speaking it out to y'all, most of these, they form me first too, right? At the end of the day. And this word of the day is so true because all of my friends, like, I don't regard them as friends. Like, I regard them as family because, you know, they say like family, you don't get to choose your family, but you get to choose your friends. And your friends are your family at the end of the day, because a lot of times you realize they say blood is thicker than water. That's some bullshit.
See, now that's some bullshit.
Right? Blood is not always thicker than water. Sometimes your own blood will do you dirtier and filthier than somebody in the street. And somebody in the street will show you so much love and be so genuine and for you that, you know, you would think that they were your family as opposed to your blood relatives, right? So at the end of the day, this rings true. You know, what you lose in family, you gain in friends. You know, you might have a mother that's a piece of trash or a father that's a piece of shit, you know, siblings, whatever it is, but you got friends that God places in your path and in your life that fill that void, and you don't even miss it at the end of the day, right? So, you know, definitely shout out to all the friends that are like family, you know, and all those people that are able to form those long-term relationships, man, that show each other love genuinely, right? So, you know, shout out to y'all, and that is the word of the day, all right? But for today, we're going to get into a topic that was submitted by a viewer by the name of Josh. So shout out to Josh. We got an email. Josh said, yo, big shout out to y'all. I love the show. Watch it every week. I was wondering if you guys could do an episode about knowing your worth and knowing your value. So big shout out to Josh, man. You know, that's what we're going to do today. Today's episode is know your worth and add tax. I'm going to say that again. Know your worth and add tax. I think that's important for a lot of people because a lot of people don't really know their worth, right? That's real talk. Like, they might undervalue themselves. And then there's some people that might overvalue themselves too, right? So, you know, in today's episode, we're going to get into that. We're going to break it down. I made some points as always, and it's going to be a fire episode, man. You know, I'm looking forward to this. So let's get into it, right? So before we even start, let's get into the definitive nature of these words, right? What is worth? So worth, by the definition, means having a particular value or the monetary value of something, right? So worth means something has value, right? So on the flip side, we got to dig into value. What is value? Value is the regard that something is held to, deserve, the importance, worth, or usefulness of something. So basically, to have worth, that means you have value. That means you are useful. You can't have worth without having some form of usefulness or value. So that's important, right? I want y'all to take notes, do what you got to do, because we're going to go a little deep, right, with this episode. But it's worth it. I promise you. So if you have that worth, you got to have value or usefulness. Now, obviously, this episode is about to know your worth, right, and to add tax. So, you know, we talk about like knowing your worth, knowing your value. Where does that start? A lot of times, like, that starts in our formative years. So a lot of people might not want to acknowledge it, but we start getting our framework and our belief system about ourselves from kids, right? So if you see a little boy in his family, you know, he's a good looking little boy. 9 times out of 10, what they gonna say? Oh, he gonna get all the ladies. He gonna be a lady killer. Look at that boy. That boy's sharp. Look at that boy, right? They talk that talk. Same thing on the flip side with girls, right? She's the princess of the family. Oh, you so pretty, right? Oh, you so pretty, so beautiful. They, you know, the people in our family, they begin to basically give us these thoughts about who we are and our identity, right? Like we get that from our family. Hate it or love it, right? But this is what happens with the psychology of young children. Even how, fathers interact with their daughters or mothers interact with their sons.
You ain't shit. You just like your daddy. You don't do shit and you never gonna amount to shit.
All of this plays a part, right? I even remember hearing something that Steve Harvey had told Lori Harvey from a young girl, you are the prize. You are the prize. And, the man ain't no prize. He ain't got no value, right? That's what he said. Sounds crazy, right? But, I get it. He wanted to build up his daughter, but in the process, he was tearing down her view of men, right? Like, all right, you could tell her that she's great, but also at the same time, you should kind of insert that, you should get with a guy who you do value on some level. You just don't look at him as like he's less than, right? Because that's kind of how it's giving, right? That's what it's giving. But we'll get into that in a little bit. So circling back from young, these are the things that children are taught, and it begins to influence your psychology. It influences your subconscious of who you think you are, right? Now, on the flip side, I remember when Kevin Samuels first hit the scene, rest in peace to Kevin Samuels, and a lot of people got upset. They would look at him giving advice to different people on his show, men and women. And, they would say, oh, he's an asshole. Look how he's talking to these people. This is horrible. But not everything that he said was wrong, right? There were some instances where Kevin Samuels actually made sense. Not all the time, but sometimes he did. And I think what it was is that people were shocked. It was like a lot of shock value, right? Like here's a guy who he's got a suit on, he's well-dressed, but he's coming off very arrogant and very direct. And a lot of times people don't want to hear the truth, right? They don't want it blunt. They don't want it very direct. They want you to sugarcoat things or go roundabout. And he was like, nah, you really a 4 on a scale from 1 to 10. And they'd be like, oh my God, this dude's an asshole. But in a lot of instances, he was making sense, right? And I say that to say, we're going to talk about what constitutes value for real. So when I say that, and what constitutes worth for real, I ain't talking about what your mama say, right? Like people down south say, what your auntie say, what your daddy say, what your cousin say, what your friends say. None of that matters, yo. What matters is what is really your worth and what is really your value, right? And how you constitute that from a realistic perspective. Not about your ego, not what you were taught from a kid. This is like real life, because in order for you to navigate throughout life, you really should know what your value is, right? And I always say, for lack of better words, everybody, hate it or love it, you have a market value, right? I want y'all to write this down, man. Take notes, do whatever you got to do, but this is real spill right here. Everybody has a market value, hate it or love it, right? And your market value consists of certain things. Because like we said, when we first started this podcast, we broke down by the definitions what worth is and what value is. So it's not a feeling, right? I could say, yeah, I got money in the bank, but if I'm just talking and that's just how I feel about myself, but that's not based in factual information, it's bullshit.
A bullshit? A bullshit? A bullshit? A bullshit?
Right? So the thing is that everybody has a market value. And how you determine that market value, I made some notes here. For starters, finances, right? Hate it or love it, life is real. Life is real. Life ain't for the faint of heart. Living in New York City, I could tell you firsthand, shit costs, man. Mortgage gonna cost you, light bill gonna cost you, electric bill gonna cost you, cars are gonna cost you. Everything is gonna cost you to live in this life. And if you want to be in denial about that, so be it. But shit costs out here. So part of your market value is finances. Like, how much do you earn? How much do you have in the bank? What assets do you have? What thing? Because going back to value, right? Like, just like we said by the definition, the importance or usefulness of something. How useful are you? You know what I'm saying? Like, what do you have? Like, do you have savings? Do you have investments? Do you own real estate? This attributes to your market value. If you don't have those things, you know, and this is not to sound like an asshole, but this is just the reality of life, right? Someone who has more assets monetarily, well, keeping it real, their value is just going to be higher than yours. That's just what it is, right? Hate it or love it. Apple stock, Amazon stock is going to be higher than some no-name company on the stock market, right? And it's just, these are facts. You know, these are facts that we're talking about. So that's one thing to be cognizant of. What do your finances look like?
I can't eat. I'm broke, nigga. I'm broke.
That plays a part in your value. Second thing that plays a part in your market value, your attitude. Attitude is latitude, right? So at the end of the day, you know, what type of person are you? You know, are you a motivated person? Are you a driven person? Are you a boss? You know, in terms of just how you carry yourself, right? Like, I'm not talking about in the literal sense of you have to have a business. I'm talking about when you walk in a room, do you bring good energy? Do people want to flock to you? Do people want to talk to you? Do people want to conversate with you? Do you make people feel good? You know what I'm saying? Do you just walk in and, you know, just have that air about you that people want to just gravitate towards you? That plays a part in your market value too, right? Because, you know, with all of these things, you might be lacking in one, or one might not necessarily be as high as the other. So you might not have a lot of finances, but you might have a great attitude. You might be the type of person that people gravitate towards when they're having a crappy day. And that can elevate you in terms of your value overall, right? Like, yo, this person is a great person. They're a dynamic person. I want to be around this person. Like, that plays a part in your market value. Hate it or love it, right? But that's what it is, right? The third thing that attributes to your market value, the baggage that you carry.
I've already seen what you got.
Will you stop? What are you doing?
You don't trust me?
No, I don't.
Now, real spill, everybody has some type of baggage. There's nobody in this life that is 110% carefree that doesn't come into any space without baggage. Whether you're talking about your business, your place of employment, your relationship, whatever it is, everybody brings some form of baggage. It just depends on how much baggage you're bringing, right? So when you look at baggage, look, hey man, if you're getting on a flight, what they gonna tell you? If you bring on more baggage than you're allotted, what they gonna do? They're gonna charge you a fee, right? Every additional bag, they gotta charge you. Because you're weighing down the damn plane, man. You're taking up more space. That's the same thing with your market value. If you bring a lot of baggage, whether that be emotionally, you know, you done been through so many negative experiences in life that you are just this jaded, fractured, pessimistic, negative individual, your market value is shit because nobody wants to deal with that.
Look, you know what? You can do both of us a real big favor. Just come over to my crib and get your shit.
Right? At the end of the day, like, people want to be around people that uplift them, make them feel good. Like, if you got all this baggage and you always got mood swings, you're always angry, you're always bitter, you're always negative, you're always combative, who wants that? Right? Nobody wants that, yo. Your market value ain't what you think it is, fam. I could be perfectly honest with you, right? You got to be honest with yourself. So those three things, your finances, right? Your attitude, your emotional baggage, all those things play a part in your value, right? And knowing your value and what you bring to the table and what you don't bring to the table. It's important to be in tune with these things so you can navigate life accordingly, right? Sometimes, to be honest with you, just because someone has a certain age doesn't mean that that age is an accurate reflection of where they're at. I'll give you the perfect example. You could be with someone who's 43 years old, right? But emotionally and mentally, they're like 16 years old because they never matured, right? So they don't know how to deal with conflict. They don't know how to utilize conflict resolution. You know, you're dealing with someone who throws tantrums, you know, literally, right? Like verbally, emotionally, like they have an outburst. Like they're not on that level that they should be because they never matured to the point that's needed to elevate to the next level. And of course, that reflects on their market value, right? Like you want to be with someone who's able to mentally and emotionally meet you at a certain level, right? You guys don't have to be on the same exact level, but you gotta be in the ballpark of each other, because if not, it's just never gonna work, whatever it is that you're trying to do, right? So that's important, man. Those three things: finances, attitude, and baggage, right? Now, one thing that I will say is that, I think we're living in this era now where it's like the internet kind of messed up the game too, because I think that what happens is everything is so superficial to the point now where people are equating their value towards things that don't matter. Quite frankly, it's just bullshit, right? Like, if you got Instagram, for example, right? I honestly feel that like human beings weren't meant to have this kind of access. Like, it's unnatural and it's unreal. And it comes off, well, it doesn't come off, it is like overconsumption. So every day you're being bombarded. If you log onto the app, right, you're getting all these visuals, right? The men are seeing like hundreds of pictures of half naked women. They just like, right? The females, same thing, half naked dudes, like. People jumping in the DMs, right? And it creates this false sense of value, because now you got somebody in your DMs from all the way on the other side of the world telling you that you're gorgeous, but 9 times out of 10, you'll never see that person in your life, right? This is just like some online banter or whatever it is, but it creates a false sense of value, right? Because you got 10, 15 chicks in your DMs, or on the flip side, she's got 10, 15 guys in her DMs. These people are equating that to their value. And it's not. It's total bullshit, right? Like, those things don't matter. And the internet got a lot of people twisted with overinflated egos that it's bad, right? It's bad, like what's happening when you look at it in real time, because that isn't real life. Real life is going out in the real world, having real engagement, real interactions with people, right? So we can say that the internet has messed up people's psychology in regards to what their worth is. I don't care if you get like 100 people DMing you every day telling you how good you look. That doesn't amount to anything, right? It's no different than if someone goes out with her homegirl to a bar, dude buys her a couple drinks, they have a couple jokes, a couple laughs, they exchange numbers. That doesn't mean that you're valuable. At the end of the day, that means you just entertained the dude at a random bar or random lounge or whatever, and they don't have no vested interest in you, right? They're just talking game to you. So there's a difference between true value and then just superficial things out there too. So that's one thing to be mindful of, right? What I will say, because I'm gonna kind of circle all this back to like what I said, what real value is, knowing worth, having that actual value that's of importance and usefulness. So at the end of the day, you want to be useful, right? That's what gives you real value. Like, how useful of an individual am I to other people? That's what gives value, right? And all the other markers that I'm able to establish for myself will put me in a position to do that, right? So if I got my finances together, if I got my mental and my emotional and my spiritual alignment kicking, I'm able to help other people too, right? These are the things that matter, and that establishes true value, where you can know your worth and you can add tax on that, because you know what you bring to the table. I know that I'm not just average. I know that I'm not just regular. I know that I'm able to help people in a lot of different ways. And I think that that's important. Like, you got to be able to self-assess, and you got to be able to know where you are so you can help yourself, then you can help other people level up, right? It's important to know your worth, man, and not get taken advantage of. A lot of times, like, when people don't know their worth, people will just take. I heard somebody say before, like, listen, man, you gotta establish boundaries, because most people don't have any, right? It's like people don't want you to be an open checkbook. You just giving out money all day, every day. But you gotta ask yourself, if the shoe was on the other foot, would they be able to reciprocate it? Probably not, right? But people are quick to take, but they're not quick to give, right? People are quick to dump on you emotionally, but they're not quick to ask you, how's your day going, right? So that's the reality at the end of the day, man. You got to know your worth and add tax, but also be real with yourself, right? Don't overvalue, but be realistic where you are, because when you're realistic, then you can make an assessment to say, okay, what do I have to do to level up in my life? If on a scale from 1 to 10 right now, Your value's at like a 5. What can I do to get me up to a 10? That's important, right? This is real talk. Like I said, people hated Kevin Samuels and other people for talking like that, but they wasn't all the way crazy. You know, Kevin Samuels wasn't all the way crazy. Like, some of the stuff he did say was true. And a lot of people, they got overinflated egos. Like, you know, you're not that guy. You're not that chick. You think you are, but when you really break it down, like I said, with a lot of these points, when you start looking to see what people's finances look like, what their attitude is like, what type of baggage they're carrying, nah, you're not that dude. You're not that chick. You know? So, you know, I try to piece all of this together, basically just to say, know your worth, right? And make sure that you don't let anybody take advantage of you. If you are a person that needs to do self-work to level up, do that too, you know? But the goal of this is just to kind of give people a breakdown of what that looks like in real time. Because a lot of times, you know, I hear people say all the time, yeah, I know my worth. I know, and most people don't. You know what I mean? When you really start hitting them with tangible facts, then it doesn't add up. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I hope y'all got something out of this, man. You know, I appreciate y'all tapping in every week, man. Know your worth, add tax, and until next week, peace.